Hello, Michael. Nice, yeah, not to see you, to hear you today. And I was waiting for that moment. Welcome to 60 Minutes, it's called in German.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I very much appreciate it.
You're a member of the band Spiritual Cramp. How would you define your music?
You know, I think that there are a lot of different elements of what we're trying to do with our band. I think that, first and foremost, we wanted to start a punk band. Pretty straightforward. We're inspired by bands like The Clash, the Sex Pistols, the Ramones, all that first wave, 70s, New York, London punk rock. But there are other elements of what we're doing. We're pulling from dub, we're pulling from big rock and roll. We're pulling from a lot of indie rock as well. Bands like Block Party, The Strokes, The Hives are a good one. There's a lot of different elements of what we're pulling from. It's a very broad spectrum of music that we pull from to create kind of our own version of what we want to hear out in the world.
I was listening to your music while I was driving here in Germany. It's about 4 weeks that your album being released. It was a bit punk music, was well made, and I was concentrating on something else, but I liked it. The lyrics, I said, wow, that's something completely different than I thought in the first moment when I was listening to you. It sounds like you've been living on the street, that there's a lot of anger, a lot of whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to say, let's get to know each other, because I think that a lot of the music that was written for this record was, you know, I'll back up a little bit. A very smart friend of mine says that all successful businesses and bands are an authentic representation of their founders. And I'm the founder of Spiritual Cramp. So, Spiritual Cramp is my story, right? Every song is just a different piece of who I am. Sometimes it's a hyperbolic representation of who I am. But yeah, I definitely I definitely did not grow up with two parents who were married in a nice house. I grew up in many different homes. My parents were both unavailable. They were worrying about other stuff. We didn't have very much money, and yeah, it was tough because I didn't have much of a stable home life. So because I didn't have much of a stable home life, I got into a lot of trouble. I I didn't have much attention from my parents, and so I went out and I got attention elsewhere, right? And I used to steal. I got into a lot of fights. It was how I lived my life because I never had anyone show me how to live life. And yeah, I think a lot of what is on this record is me trying to get that story out because I wanted to tell the story of someone who, you know, didn't have any money, who was going to parties and fighting and going through medicine cabinets and doing drugs and, struggling with drugs and alcohol. And, there's all these different parts of who I am that make up the content and the character of our band. And yeah, I think that spiritual cramp is just in many aspects just a representation of me.
When I listened to your lyrics, that was the lyrics I'm used to. I grew up with, and I know the music at that time. It was really straight, really brutal. It was loud, and that people didn't know how to play the instrument, but it was raw and it was authentic. That was my first thought. So I was very curious to meet you.
Yeah, like, the thing about our band is, like, it is very so we've been a band for 7 years. 2 of it was the pandemic, and, we started out very small. We started out just doing punk 7 inches. That's kinda because 'cause we're all punks, right? We come from the punk rock scene, and we were doing 7 inches, and the recordings were small, and the band was small, and we were playing in San Francisco a lot, and we were playing in Oakland and in Los Angeles and sometimes New York. And, we were playing small clubs. And as we continued down the road and the band got bigger, the production kind of got bigger with it, if that makes any sense. Like it wasn't like we were like, "Oh, we need to create this big produced record in order to get bigger." It was like whatever the inverse of that is. It was like, "Oh, the band's getting bigger. It feels like we need to stop being small." We almost intentionally kept the band small and the recordings small and the internet presence small on purpose because that's what we thought was cool. We thought it was cool to be secret, and we wanted to have it be very boutique and have it be hard to access. And as I got older and I became more comfortable being seen and taking up space with who I am, I think that the band became more comfortable taking up space and being seen.
I must ask a question there because I think it's very important what you said. You changed and you started to think differently. You wanted to be seen with your passion, with your music, with your lyrics. What was the reason for that? Is there a reason?
I think the reason in initially was no matter what, I've always been on this quest for growth personally, like internal growth, right? I always want to get better. I always want to become a better person. I always want to grow in my business endeavors. I want to grow artistically. I want to become large. And I wouldn't say larger. I want to become better. And I think that the natural, the natural growth trajectory of spiritual cramp was that if we were going to grow anywhere, it had to be larger. It had to. That's because we kept putting more and more time into the band, right? And it became more of a full-time job. And as we as it became more of a full-time job, it just it's like when you're when you're riding a bike and you're riding on a bike path. Like the bike path is right in front of you. You don't have to look around and think like, well, should I should I take a left into the weeds or should I go right into the pond? It's like there's nowhere else to go but the path. So for us, it was just that was the natural place to go. And as we became a different band than we were when we started, and as I became a different person than I was when I started the band, I became more comfortable taking up space. And that's just where we decided to go.
May I say, you started to become yourself.
I definitely I think I started to become a more comfortable version of myself. Like even like we're writing the new record right now. We're starting to work on the new record, and like the person who you hear on that first record, or the self-titled record, and the person who you'll hear on this new record, it's like every day I'm becoming that. Like I said, I'm always on this search for a better version of myself. So I think that Spiritual Cramp at the time when we wrote this LP, that was the best version of myself I had ever been, and that's why it sounds so good, is because I was able to sound good. I was ready to sound good.
And it was just the first step.
Mhm. Yeah, it was, for sure.
Honestly, it's a path that I think you mentioned somewhere. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's a
Yeah.
marathon. It's step by step. If you develop like this, and I remember of another story, a German punk band, the Idiots they call themselves. I love them. And the singer, like you, he suddenly wanted to do something else. He studied how to sing an opera. He got an opera singer, and he still does his punk. On the other hand, he's singing completely different things,
Oh, wow.
and it is still the same crazy guy he's been 50 years ago or 45 years ago, and it reminds me of that.
Yeah, I definitely, I think that, yeah, I mean, if that was an honest grow if that's where you're being called to go, if it for me, if it's opera music or if it's, like, indie rock or electronic post-punk, I'm gonna go there because that's you have to go where you're called to go as an artist.
Do you honestly think about genre, about music, or do you just think about your music? We, as journalists, we need those genres.
You know, I try to be aware of it with Spiritual Cramp. Like, if I ever do, want to start singing opera or something like that, it will not be under the moniker Spiritual Cramp. I will do something else because I think a lot of people start bands, right? Like specifically in hardcore punk. I think a lot of people in punk rock, they start bands when they're young. The band gets popular and moderately popular, and they'll try to change the entire style of the band because they develop new interests, right? Because that's what you do. But I think that's a disservice. Excuse me. Well, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that people should just start new bands if they're going to change completely. Because Spiritual Cramp is this one thing, right? It is gritty. It sounds like The Clash. It is inspired by dub. It dresses a certain way. It looks, it feels, it sounds, and it smells like a certain thing, right? Spiritual Cramp is this one thing. And that thing can grow, right? And it can become a little bigger. We can lean more into the left. We can lean more to the left or lean more to the right, right? We can lean into indie rock. We can lean into dub. We can lean wherever we want to lean. But the defining elements of Spiritual Cramp, I think, will always be dub music, punk rock music, indie rock music, dressing cool, being really good live, and being honest and authentic in your lyrics. And I think that a lot of bands and people forget what it is that they planted the roots of their tree in, and they think, right.
It's about money very often. Once you're successful, the label, everybody tells you what you should do, and then you lose yourself. I was listening to you, and I thought you're right. On the other hand, if spiritual cramp grows
Right.
in the natural way, if you change, you change. As long as you stay yourself.
Yeah, totally. So, okay, so the first records that we did were all recorded in San Francisco. I mean, everything we've ever done has been recorded in San Francisco. All by the same person. Her name is Grace. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, and that record is really gritty and raw, and it's very, like I said, small. We wanted it to sound like a Stooges record, and it does. It sounds like a record that was made in 1972, and we were trying to do that at the time. And as the band grew, and as, like I said earlier, we became larger and we became comfortable taking up more space as a band, and it became natural. We started looking into other ways to expand, and you I think that the smartest people in the world expand with help, right? So I can't expand alone because I've never expanded before. I've never So when I want to grow, I go ask people who I have seen have grown successfully. And I say, "How did you grow? What do you think that it is that we should do?" Right? and I go talk to other producers. I go to producers and I say, "Hey, where do you think you could see our band growing?" And I listen to them because I've never successfully grown in artistically, right? I've spent my whole life doing the same thing and whiffing, right? And I've never been a part of a successful organization that has grown before. And um so I go to our label, we got signed to Blue Grape Music, and the people who work at Blue Grape have all had a lot of success in growing bands. Like every person who worked there has been a part of big, big, big bands. Specifically Dave, who owns the label. I mean, Dave is the A&R behind Turnstile, one of the biggest bands on earth right now. Dave is the A&R behind Slipknot. Dave is the A&R behind White Reaper. I mean, there are so many bands Dave had found and helped grow their career from start to finish. So Dave, for me, is an incredible resource to say, "Hey, Dave, I'm becoming more comfortable taking up more space. The band feels like it is naturally becoming bigger. What do you think we should do with these songs?" And Dave has amazing insight when it comes to growth and career trajectory and just how it is that I should navigate our band going down that path. So, I ask for help basically.
It's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you because I know the story behind the Blue Grape Music. And first of all, you were lucky to sign there to be able, and it's an honor. And on the other hand, there is something about your band, otherwise they wouldn't have taken you, they wouldn't have signed you.
Right. Yeah, totally.
But now they're back, and you're with them at one of the first bands.
Yeah, I think we're the second band. Yeah, we're the second band they signed. Code Orange is the first. We feel honored to work with Blue Grape. I mean, when we went out to dinner with Dave Rath, we sat down. We were in Chicago. We were playing a show in Chicago. Dave came to the show and he took us out to dinner. And I think that he was into the band at the time. And he said to me, he said, "No one will work harder for you than I will work." And I said to myself, I said, "That's what everyone says." You know? I I, um, I and that's what anyone in a label will say. Yeah. Yeah, but Dave, after we've been working with them for, I think we've been signed to Blue Grape for, I guess, a little like a year and a half, I wanna say. Let me look it up. It's been a very short amount of time, um, which is crazy because it feels like we've done so much with them. But that was, yeah. So June of 2023. So we've been on Blue Grape for like a year and 3 months, and like I know that they work harder than other labels. And oh, sorry, sorry, that's loud, but yeah, I mean they work harder than anyone else, and Dave meant that when he said that. I mean, I cannot get them to stop calling me. They're so innovative. They have so many ideas for how to grow our band, and they're endlessly supportive. They're an amazing group of people.
What did you learn during recording the album? What changed? What was new for you? What did you get from it? From Dave, and I don't know who helped you.
You know what I learned? I learned that I'm not as good as I'm not that good at anything. And I learned that there are people out there who are much better at everything than I am. But what I learned is that those people are always willing to help. Sometimes when I write a song, excuse me, sometimes when I write a song, I'll finish and I'll just think like I'm a genius, right? Or something like that. I'll think like, oh, this is the perfect pop song. It's gonna be a hit. Um, and while working through this album, um, I realized that I'm not the perfect. Sorry, my dog is barking at me. And I realized that I'm not a perfect songwriter, right? And like Dave I sent Dave the first version of Talking on the Internet, and then he was like, yeah, it's cool, but it needs like a ton of work." And I remember thinking, like, "What are you talking about? This is it." He made me rewrite it, and so I rewrote it, and he said, "This is a little closer, but it's still not good." And I was like, "Okay." So I went and I rewrote it again, right? And 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 by the end of it, we landed at something we felt comfortable with. But then we took it to Carlos, right, who helped do post production on the record, and Carlos was even able to help pull it down even more, right? Look, what I learned is that there's always room for insight and growth from trusted advisors. And I learned that if you want to be the best you can be at what it is you're doing, you always need people teaching you and telling you, hey, it's like playing sports, right? It's like if you're playing high school basketball and you want to get into college basketball, you want to hire a private coach, right? Or you need someone to help give you lessons. You're not going to just be this amazing professional level basketball player naturally. I mean, that happens one in a million, but like really it's about being taught, and it's about listening to the people around you. And I learned that to be quiet. I learned to be quiet, and I learned to ask for help. And that's an invaluable skill, you know? And I also learned that before you can before you can take advice from people, you need to make sure that you really trust the people
Yeah.
around you. And I trust the people around me.
What I was thinking, I was listening when I was listening to you, and you have to have some talent, and you have to work hard. Yeah, otherwise you won't get
You do
anywhere.
need to work very hard. Yeah. Yeah, you have to have patience. You have to have a lot of patience. And you have to, I mean, like that's like you said, it's like working hard. It's like someone's gonna tell you your song's not good. And it's so easy just to be like, I don't care what you think. Right. And then just put it out anyway. And what's hard is my dog is
Yeah,
running his, I'm sorry, he's just being
I can't
okay.
hear it. It doesn't disturb.
Okay, perfect. Good, good, good. He's just being a little loud. But I'm sorry.
Oh, he
He's
has
got the
have fun.
zoomies.
He has fun with us.
Um, yeah, yeah. But yeah, like it's like oh, and touring too. You have to tour all year long. Like you cannot stop touring. The more you tour, the bigger your band is going to get. And touring is uncomfortable, and people don't understand how painful it is. And people don't understand that you don't make any money being in a band. We got our song in like a TV show yesterday, and it's like people are congratulating me, and in my head I'm like, oh, you probably think we're making a bunch of money, like, but that doesn't come until later, right? It's like starting a business. It takes so many years of sacrifice, and it's so painful to do this, and I think that yeah, I mean, you got to work really, really,
That,
really hard
and
and be really
now
patient.
we're touching passion. But before we go there, another question can put up. You said how you grew up. You were a wild child, a bad boy, and don't you get angry if can you allow somebody to say you no, no, that's not good? The first when I think about it, the first thing man, oh, there must be some thoughts because you're used to it. Or did you learn to
Right.
control it, or did you lose this kind of anger? Is it gone?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think with anger, like I think that because I don't want to be angry, right? I don't want to be frustrated. I don't want to be losing my mind all the time, right? I don't want to be this pent up pressure cooker. I want I think and as I get older, I realize I'm not angry. But I do have a story to tell that involves that piece of it, right? Like people and art and everything, it's like it's nonlinear. So like sometimes I am that person, right? I'm the person who sings the song Better Off This Way, which is just like a psycho song, right? It's a crazy song. And but then sometimes I'm the person who sings Herbert's on Holiday, right? And I'm always gonna feel like I did when I wrote Better Off This Way. And I'm always gonna feel, hopefully, like the person I felt like when I wrote Herbert's on Holiday. So it's like, but I think that I can always channel that. So like, but the idea is that I personally feel I understand that those are just feelings, right? I don't have to make my anger my whole personality.
You're talking about this, I think it's the last song, yeah, Herbert. And in a way, you're naked. Yeah, you're naked. You show your feelings, and I think that is you can be very proud of that. Yet you are capable to do that
Yeah, I mean,
because living your life, that is the last thing you would do. You were allowed to do to survive.
yeah, you know, I think I'm just trying to write as authentically as possible and be as vulnerable as possible because the best art comes from being authentic. And you know, that is me singing about my best friend, you know.
Coming back to the record, for you, it's been a while, and as you told in the beginning, you're already working on the next album. I normally tell every artist a new album is a new child. You're proud of it, you love it. And if you look at this child, your second album, what are you proud of?
Oh man, I mean, I'm proud of writing music that I would like to listen to. I'm also proud of the fact that I got to do a record finally my own way. Everything you're looking at for Spiritual Cramp came from my brain and my writing partner Mike. But I art directed the entire thing. I chose the producer. I wrote all of the riffs. I wrote all the lyrics. And I've been playing in bands my whole life, and I always wanted to do something my own way because I thought that it would succeed. Right? When you're young, you think like, "Oh, you guys, you know, because I played in all these bands, and when you play in the bands, you think to yourself, "Oh, if you would just do what I wanted you to do, we could become a big band or what, you know, whatever. We could, you know, we could I don't know. I never had anything that I could look at and say was mine fully. You know, everything I've ever done has been collaborative and this big yeah, it's been collaborative. And I think that Spiritual Cramp, in a sense, is collaborative, but really it's just me and my partner Mike. And it's I'm really proud to look at that record and think like, oh, this is me. And I did it. And I was right. I knew people would like this because I always thought that if I made something that I was in charge of, I thought that people would like it, but I never had an opportunity to. And now that I have made something myself, I see that people like it. And that's validating for me to know that I can create something that resonates with people.
You are lucky to have those guys around you, the band. They support you, they tolerate you in a way, or they even help you. And what is their part? It's your project, but they're still,
Yeah.
yeah, part of it, an important part.
Yeah. Very much so. So, I mean, that's the thing, right? Is like, I have the big ideas, but without Nate being on stage, I mean, Nate is one of the best guitar players you will ever see live. That guy will will do a huge guitar solo while hanging upside down, right? And he's gonna look amazing the entire time. He's gonna be dressed cooler than everyone in the crowd, and he's larger than life, and he's a rock star, right? Nate is a rock star, and without Nate, we need a big rock star guitar player, right? He's just a big badass, funny, loud, solo ripping lead guitar player. We need that. I have to have that. And those kinds of people don't come along very often. Jose, right? He plays auxiliary percussion in the band. Without Jose, all my designs, right? Because I do art direction, but Jose is the designer. Jose helps me execute my larger visions. And he's cool as hell. It's the same thing with Nate. It's like Jose is an incredible player, right? When we go out on stage, it's like we wouldn't be like I don't. You've probably never seen us because we've never been over to where you live before, but we're very good live, and we've always been very good live. And it's because the people in the band are good players and they understand how important it is to take what we're doing seriously. So, yeah, I can have all these ideas all I want, right? Like you said, it's like, yeah, sure, it's my band, but without the people in my band helping me execute it perfectly and razor sharp, we would just be executing a sloppy version of an interesting vision, right? The vision would still be interesting, but Spiritual Cramp's not sloppy. Spiritual Cramp's right on the money. And the reason we're right on the money is because everyone in our band, Julian, Jose, Nate, Mike, me, they understand that they have to put in the work to execute this vision. And without them, we would be executing nothing.
Michael, thank you so much. We're talking about a lot, and I think it's a wonderful finish. It was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Victor.
And I'm looking forward to you. You are coming to Germany on the 30th of August. You're playing here in Berlin, Bauhaus. I hope I will meet you. I will be there. And
Amazing. I look forward to it.
thank you very much.